Good evening. My name is Laura Queso, and I am pleased to be acting as the MC for tonight's event. It is certainly a challenging time in our world, in our country, and in our region. Not only has COVID-19 significantly impacted the people, businesses, and communities here in Northeast Ohio, but we've also experienced events that have brought to light longstanding issues and challenges that need to be addressed. Today is about continuing to take a good look at ways we can become a better, stronger region. Today is about having real conversations about the role we as the business community can play in developing strategies and initiatives that move us to real, formidable action for the betterment of Northeast Ohio as a whole. We've all heard that optimistic phrase, "We are in this together," from institutions, organizations, and individuals across our region over the last several months. And that statement could not be truer or more accurate than when we talk about the work of the Greater Cleveland Partnership. Since 2004, the GCP has been acting as a convener, bringing the business community together to focus on Greater Cleveland's biggest challenges and to pursue our region's most significant opportunities. As was noted in stakeholder interviews for the organization's 2018 brand study, GCP isn't afraid to take on the big, complicated stuff. And that has been proven in the organization's priorities and work since its inception. The Greater Cleveland Partnership represents the needs and interests of the business community, integrating the perspectives and voices of all businesses, from the small business entrepreneur to the growing middle market companies and even the largest corporations in town. No other organization can bring businesses of all sizes and sectors together to focus on a unified strategy that will improve the economic prosperity of our region. Today, the organization brings us together again to focus on what is next. I welcome you all to the 2020 Greater Cleveland Partnership Annual Meeting. In the next hour, you'll hear more about the strategic initiatives the business community in our region is leading, and we will have the privilege to hear from experts about issues that pertain very specifically to the major pileup of questions you saw in that opening video. Yes, there are many questions to address and many answers to consider, and we all know we cannot solve them all immediately. However, with strong, committed leadership, a collaborative economic development ecosystem, and a solid action plan, we can accelerate progress. We are so glad that you are with us today as we explore the role each and every one of us can play in building and advancing this region, a place we are all so proud to call home. I am now going to send it over to Scott Chaikin, Executive Chairman of Dixon Eaton and Chair of the Greater Cleveland Partnership Board of Directors, to get us started.
Thank you, Laura, and welcome everyone to GCP's 2020 annual meeting. As you can see, I'm sitting in the KeyBank State Theater at Playhouse Square. I'm here because this empty theater and our seemingly empty downtown is a stark picture of what the pandemic has done to Cleveland's economy. But I'm also here because Playhouse Square helps bring to life the story of how much we've accomplished as a community, and it helps explain what GCP does and is doing. I'll come back to that in a minute. As Laura said, we're the primary platform for the business community to collaborate on improving our region, and we have a history of taking on big, complicated projects. As the largest chamber in the nation, we do that in part by providing direct service to individual businesses, just like any other chamber. What's different about GCP is that we also have an advocacy division that helps generate government support not just for member businesses, but also for critical community assets like the Cleveland Metropolitan School District and NASA Glenn. And an equity and inclusion division that helps companies improve their own diversity efforts while also leading and assisting on community-wide equity efforts. And a real estate division that provides early investment and support to catalytic real estate projects at individual companies and in our city neighborhoods. We also have a talent division that works with individual businesses, but is also playing a central role in an effort to improve our entire workforce development system, and a small business division that connects entrepreneurs to the solutions and resources they need to grow and stay in Northeast Ohio. We put that broad set of capabilities to work on many of our community's most challenging and ambitious initiatives. Playhouse Square is a visible, physical example of what our community can accomplish when we come together, as GCP did with many of Playhouse Square's other public and private partners. Once a virtually abandoned neighborhood, this is now the second largest performing arts district in the country, and now home to the Lumen, the largest residential project in downtown Cleveland in 40 years. As I said earlier, Playhouse Square is a symbol of accomplishment and potential, but this empty theater is also a symbol of what has happened to most every facet of our lives this year. So what we're going to talk about today is GCP's progress on its Forward CLE strategic plan, but also how we've pivoted to help address the immediate and longer-term impacts of the pandemic. Fortunately, much of the work that needed to be done to best support the business community was already underway. The fundamental goal of our strategic plan is to accelerate growth and prosperity by addressing our biggest challenges and opportunities. Forward CLE has 6 main focus areas: growing our economy by advancing our innovation sector, growing our economy equitably through strategies built on diversity and inclusion, solving the talent and workforce issues that are holding back both employers and workers, creating more development and opportunity in city neighborhoods, making the delivery government services more efficient, and 6th, connecting more businesses to better services to help them grow. There's a lot of long-term work being done in those 6 areas, but in March we asked ourselves, what can we do now to help our businesses get through the pandemic and help our community emerge in a position of strength? And we jumped into action. Our advocacy team stepped into a vital intermediary role, helping local, state, and federal policymakers understand the real needs of businesses in the community, helping them shape assistance programs, and helping organizations access those programs. Within 3 days of the mandatory shutdown, our InGear online business services platform was enhanced to also serve as a COVID-19 business resource portal to address immediate economic impacts. The platform provided access to direct services, hosted advocacy updates, had links to pertinent information, and more. More than 16,000 companies accessed InGear, and another 700 plus asked for and received direct personal assistance in the first 6 months of the crisis. At the request of the Gunn Foundation and the Rapid Response Fund partners, we also took on a special project developing a nonprofit COVID-19 resource portal that provided outreach and engagement for nearly 300 nonprofits. The team's advisory services supported access to Paycheck Protection Program providers, resulting in nearly $12 million of support to Greater Cleveland nonprofits. Because displaced workers needed help finding jobs and many employers needed to fill roles quickly, GCP also launched an Employer Now hiring page that listed thousands of available positions among 65 of Greater Cleveland's largest employers. We joined with the Cuyahoga County Stabilization Fund to help award capital grants and technical assistance to small businesses with the most significant need. And we partnered with 9 other organizations supporting entrepreneurs of color to disperse grants to minority-owned small businesses in Northeast Ohio. 2020 has been a year that required the Greater Cleveland Partnership to be nimble, compassionate, and unflagging in the face of a terrible challenge. And on behalf of the GCP board, I want to thank our staff for months of terrific, tireless work. I also want to thank our many partners, way too many to name, but almost every significant thing GCP does is in collaboration with partners. And so many of you and your organizations have also gone far above and beyond this year. We all know this pandemic isn't over and that many of its impacts will be long-lasting. There's much work to do, and we look forward to doing our share alongside you. Now I want to bring in one of those partners. Please welcome Loretta Mester, President and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland and a member of the Greater Cleveland Partnership Board of Directors, to provide an in-depth look at the state of our economy and what's on the horizon.
It's a pleasure to be with you today. Let me start by congratulating Joe Roman on his upcoming retirement as President and CEO of the Greater Cleveland Partnership. Joe was one of the first civic leaders I met when I moved to Cleveland in 2014. From our very first conversation, it was clear that Joe was passionate about Cleveland. Over his entire career, he's been a strong advocate for our region and a strong adherent to the view that by working together, business, civic, and community leaders can get important things done. I'm sure that Joe will show the same dedication and optimism in his new endeavors, and I wish him well. Wishing someone well has taken on new meaning this year. The coronavirus pandemic is a global public health crisis that has inflicted pain and hardship on people all over the world. The pandemic was an unprecedented shock to the economy, the largest in most of our lifetimes. In March, all but essential economic activity shut down when the country took aggressive social distancing measures to limit the spread of the virus and to buy some time for the healthcare system to increase its capacity to care for the sick, learn more about the virus itself, and develop testing and treatments. Now, in the second quarter of the year, real output declined at a rate of about 31% measured on an annual basis. In just the 2 months of March and April, payroll jobs dropped by 22 million. That's about the same number of jobs that the economy had added over the entire recent expansion that lasted over 10 years. The unemployment rate, which had been at a 50-year low of 3.5% in February, spiked to 14.7% in April. And despite supply disruptions, inflation moved down with the drop in demand. In May, as public health statistics began to improve, many parts of the country began to relax some of their stay-at-home restrictions, and the economy began to reopen. Activity, hiring, and inflation picked up, all good news. But there is quite a bit of difference across sectors. Interest rate sensitive sectors like housing and autos have seen the sharpest rebounds. Other sectors, especially service sectors like travel, hospitality, and leisure, are still very depressed. September's job report shows a continued pickup in hiring, although at a slower pace than in the summer. We've made up a little over half of the jobs lost in March and April as people return to work from temporary furlough. But that still means we're down almost 11 million jobs from February's level. The unemployment rate fell to just under 8% in September, better than expected. But part of that drop reflects a drop in labor force participation, which remains well below February's level. Now, it's clear that the adverse effects of the pandemic have not been evenly distributed. They've been borne by the most vulnerable in our economy, lower income and minority workers and communities, those who do not have the opportunity to work from home, those who do not live in areas with reliable telecommunications and internet services, or access to adequate health care, and the smaller of the small businesses. Rehiring by employers has been slower for lower income workers than for higher income workers at the national level and in Cuyahoga County. Over the course of the reopening, there has been less progress on reducing the unemployment rate for minorities than for whites, and for those with lower levels of education compared to those with higher levels. So while the economy is recovering, it is still in a deep hole. Employment is about where it was in the middle of 2015. So we've lost more than 5 years of job growth. Even if growth rebounds in the third quarter at the same pace at which it contracted in the second quarter, the level of output will be about where it was at the end of 2017. So the economy will have lost almost 3 years of output growth. Both monetary policy and fiscal policy reacted swiftly and strongly to support the economy thus far. We have in place very accommodative monetary policy. The Fed funds rate is at its effective lower bound. We're purchasing Treasury and agency mortgage-backed securities. We have a number of liquidity and lending facilities in place to ensure that markets continue to function and that credit continues to flow to businesses and households. And we have temporarily relaxed some of the regulatory requirements on banks so they have greater capacity to lend. Fiscal policy actions have included grants to individuals, certain businesses hit hardest by the pandemic, and states and municipalities, expanded unemployment benefits, and the Paycheck Protection Program, which offered loans to small businesses that became grants for firms maintaining their payrolls. Now, it's going to take some time to move from the somewhat fragile, disparate recovery we now have to a more sustainable, broader recovery. The path of the recovery is likely to be bumpy with some fits and starts and uneven progress. It's going to take time for workers who have lost jobs to find new ones, either at another firm in their current industry or in a new industry after they retrain. The commercial real estate market has been particularly hard hit. There is already a trend toward online shopping and remote work. The pandemic has greatly accelerated that trend. The structural changes in the commercial real estate market will take some time to sort out. Now, provided we continue to make progress on controlling the virus, activity and hiring will continue to expand. By the end of this year, I expect that output will still be somewhat below its level at the end of last year, that the unemployment rate will remain in the high single digits, and that inflation will be well below our longer run 2% goal. The recovery should continue over the next couple of years, provided it is supported by very accommodating monetary policy and further fiscal policy actions. Fiscal policy in the form of aid to households and small businesses most affected by the pandemic, and to states and municipal governments, and increased investment in testing, contact tracing, treatment, and vaccine development would provide important support for the recovery. Of course, there is a lot of uncertainty around the forecast. It's highly dependent on the virus and our actions to control its spread. It's easy to think of downside scenarios. Many of our contacts in the region across all sectors tell us that uncertainty about the course of the virus and about whether there's going to be additional fiscal support is clouding their outlook and holding back larger investments. But there are upside scenarios as well. Development of a safe and effective vaccine that people have confidence in and that can be widely distributed fairly quickly would be very positive for the outlook. In addition, we should not discount the fact that the pickup in activity we've seen so far has exceeded expectations. It's a good reminder that we should never count out the resiliency of the U.S. economy and the American people.
Thank you, Loretta, for those insights. And as Loretta's comments alluded to, the economy across our country and in our region is challenged. Much of that as a result of the pandemic, of course. Yet the pandemic was not the impetus for every issue or challenge that we're dealing with right here in Northeast Ohio. In many ways, it simply exacerbated the issues, forcing all of us to have to take a closer look at the systemic problems that are holding us back as a region. Now, data gathered early in the pandemic showed that communities of color are disproportionately affected by COVID-19 across the United States. But incomplete data left a muddy picture of these disparities. Today, as the U.S. has surpassed 200,000 COVID-19 deaths and reached nearly 7 million confirmed cases, racial data is more complete, and the trend is clear. People of color get sick and die of COVID-19 at rates higher than white people and higher than their share of the population. Additionally, a study conducted by McKinsey early in the pandemic found that minority small businesses will be disproportionately impacted. The study noted that the COVID-19 crisis is affecting small businesses across the board. However, the 1.1 million minority-owned small businesses with employees in America are an essential job source, employing more than 8.7 million workers and annually generating more than $1 trillion in economic output. Women own nearly 300,000 of them, employing 2.4 million workers. They hypothesize that the crisis could disproportionately affect minority-owned small businesses for two critical reasons. They tend to face underlying issues that make it harder to run and scale successfully, and they are more likely to be concentrated in the industries most immediately affected by the pandemic. While already a difficult landscape for minorities in our community, we all know that the conversation on equity and inclusion was intensified following the murder of George Floyd. Scott Chaikin will tell us more about how the Greater Cleveland Partnership catalyzed to immediately address what was happening in our community.
One of our greatest shortcomings as a society and as a community is the ongoing disadvantage suffered by Americans of color in terms of health, education, employment, income, and so many other measures. As Laura said, the pandemic has worsened the gap, disproportionately affecting minority businesses, communities, and families. And nationwide protests triggered by George Floyd's murder have highlighted both a greater urgency and, we hope, a greater opportunity for addressing the problem. When we began work on the Forward CLEA strategy, we understood that one fundamental truth underpinned the entire plan. which was that no strategy to improve our region's prosperity can succeed unless it creates prosperity across our community. We knew then that we needed to do more, and that need has become even clearer in recent months. GCP's been focused on diversity and inclusion since its founding. Today, our Equity and Inclusion Division leads the business community's effort and focus to expand opportunities for people of color. And every element of our Forward CLE strategic plan addresses equity and inclusion. For example, our innovation plan aims to accelerate the formation and growth of minority-owned startups. Our workforce strategy includes training specifically targeted at employees of color and also deals with transportation issues that make job hubs inaccessible. Our neighborhood efforts include investing in job-creating development in city neighborhoods like Fairfax, Glenville, and Clark Fulton, and our business services tools are being geared to connect minority-owned companies to resources, support, and opportunities to grow. And in the past half year, the pandemic and nationwide protests against structural racism have created a different level of urgency and a desire among our board and our members to accelerate progress. Within hours of the murder of George Floyd and the ensuing protests, GCP, along with an initial group that included United Way, Destination Cleveland, Downtown Cleveland Alliance, the Cleveland Foundation, and Playhouse Square, launched the Cleveland Pledge. The Cleveland Pledge is a commitment of individual and collective resources to set forth tangible actions to undo structural racism. Today, more than 100 Greater Cleveland organizations have signed the pledge, with a commitment to assess their organization's equity and inclusion strategies and identify ways they can step up to make a difference and have an impact. Our Equity and Inclusion Division created a list of 9 steps that pledge signers, our member businesses, and other interested companies could take to increase their own impact. We also strongly supported the work of 6 leading organizations: Birthing Beautiful Communities, First Year Cleveland, the NAACP Cleveland Branch, United Way, the Urban League of Greater Cleveland, and the YWCA, to declare racism a public health crisis. Our board of directors voted unanimously to endorse the move by Cleveland City Council to declare racism a public health crisis and to establish a working group to promote racial equity. The board also unanimously committed to helping close the digital divide that's part of the structural disadvantage faced by communities of color, and we've taken concrete steps to do that. You'll hear more about that shortly. Of course, the decisions and actions of local companies as employers and customers have a huge impact on opportunities for minority employees and suppliers. So part of our work is helping those companies do better. At the core of that work is our diversity and inclusion organizational assessment. Employers who complete the D&I assessment receive immediate feedback, suggested resources, and best practices as they seek to improve on measures like leadership and employee and supplier diversity. This is a tool many business leaders have turned to as a way to jumpstart their own efforts, and the chambers of commerce across the country have licensed from us. The D&I assessment not only helps businesses create their own strategies, it also helps us identify, showcase, and recognize those businesses and organizations in our community who are excelling at D&I in the areas of board diversity, senior management diversity, workforce diversity, and supplier diversity. We call these the Best in Class Awards. We congratulate our 2020 winners who are listed on the screen. We also celebrate and recognize businesses who have won the Best in Class Award 3 or more times by welcoming them into our Hall of Fame. Please join me in congratulating our 4 Hall of Fame winners as well. You can learn more about these businesses and learn how they excel in diversity and inclusion initiatives on the GCP website. It's leadership from organizations like these that's needed as we look to bring the business community together to tackle the issue of systemic racism. I'd like to introduce 2 leaders from the Greater Cleveland Partnership Board who have stepped up to provide their voices and to put words into action. Join me in welcoming Craig Arnold, Chairman and CEO of Eaton, and Bill Lacey, President and CEO of GE Lighting, a Savant company.
Thank you for inviting me to share a few thoughts with you today on racial equity and the digital divide. Someone once said that you can measure the quality of society by the way it treats those who are most disadvantaged. I would add that this also applies to companies and individuals. As we've experienced over the last few months, our society, our companies, and each of us need to do better. The brutal deaths of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor showed us how systemic racism continues to erode our society And the civil unrest that followed made us see how deeply divided our nation is, maybe more divided than it's ever been. But these tragic events also showed us something else. They remind us that we all have a responsibility to step up and make a difference, and to speak out for those whose voices are not heard. It's time for us to move beyond do no harm to taking responsibility for fixing what's wrong. And if those of us in the position to bring about real change don't, then who will? As business leaders, we have a responsibility and an opportunity to drive the change our communities and our nation so desperately needs. Our accountability goes well beyond our commitment to our customers and our investors. We have a broader responsibility to society that includes ensuring that everyone has an opportunity to participate in the workplace, in the educational process, and in our economy, and especially those who have been historically left out. It's our communities, it's our companies, it's our responsibility to solve our problems. As most of you know, I wasn't raised in Cleveland. I didn't grow up a Browns or a Cavs fan, but I've lived here for 20 years and it's become my home. In Northeast Ohio, the problems that ail our nation are generally even worse in our community. I'm tired of seeing our community at the bottom of every list. Last month, we made another bottom. The worst connected big city in the US. The prior survey had us in the bottom 10%, so it's a problem that's been around for a while. We haven't done enough to fix this problem. I haven't done enough to fix this problem. Like all of you, I'm not comfortable being in the bottom 10%, and I'm certainly not comfortable being last. So, I'm asking that you take it personally, as a reflection not just of the city and the region that we call home, but as a reflection of all of us, the leaders in this community. Today, Bill Lacey and I appreciate the opportunity to update you on the work we're doing with Fred Nance to respond to one of the important issues affecting many in our community, the digital divide. Like many other leaders in Cleveland and across the nation, the events of this year inspired us to come together to drive change. For as long as I can remember, there's always been talk about fighting racial inequity, but not a lot of action. Let's leverage this moment to change that. Let's take the opportunity to turn words into actions, to do something that addresses racial inequity in a creative way, something that goes beyond inclusion and diversity efforts in our own organizations, and something that's tangible, measurable, and focused. Something that has a lasting impact on people's lives. We believe closing the digital divide in Cleveland is one way to do just that. You have my word that Bill, Fred, and I, and the companies we lead will be accountable for getting this done. And we'll continue to do all we can to ensure the events of 2020 are a catalyst for meaningful change, not only in Cleveland, but across our nation.
A few short months ago, the senseless killings of George Floyd and other young black people hit me and the rest of our country incredibly hard. Instead of hopelessness or anger, it reaffirmed my commitment to make real and lasting change. And I am proud to partner with others who feel the same. Together, Craig Arnold, Fred Nance, and I felt compelled to make a meaningful and measurable impact on systemic racism. We chose to focus on digital inclusion. The internet enables homeschooling, work from home, job searches, and access to critical e-health services. Yet nearly 1 in 4 households in Cuyahoga County lack internet access of any kind. Worse yet, this digital divide has a disproportionate impact on the welfare of the black community and worsens already existing inequalities. Closing the digital divide is a step towards narrowing the racial divide. Great efforts had already been made by local nonprofits, Cuyahoga County, and the Cleveland Mayor's Office. But we knew that mobilizing the business community would provide some much needed relief. When we approached Joe and the GCP board about closing the digital divide, it was met with overwhelming approval and support. Together, we began an effort to accomplish 2 things. First, start to get computers into the hands of low-income families. And second, find a way to make affordable, high-speed internet access available to everyone. The response from outreach to our business community has been amazing. As of today, more than 24 local corporations and organizations, big and small, have committed to donating their used computers to PCs for People. This will result in tens of thousands of computers getting into the hands of the children and families that need them most. More computers are needed, so please look up PCs for People to see the great work they do to sanitize data so you can donate safely, then refurbish and distribute computers. If you can, please commit to a partnership with them. Solving the internet access problem is complex and will take more time. Today, in addition to internet service providers, we're working with several nonprofits, government, and other organizations to drive progress. We implore you to join us. One thing has become clear in the recent months. We are at an inflection point. It is up to all of us to make real change. As business leaders, we must do the right thing and stand strong in the face of inequity. We can do better, and we must do more.
Of course, it's definitely inspiring to see leaders like Craig Bill and many others stepping up and stepping forward to lead efforts that make Northeast Ohio a better place to live, to work, and to play. And as we talk about the future, the Greater Cleveland Partnership will need to continue to be laser focused on initiatives that create a positive business environment and make Northeast Ohio a place where businesses want to start, want to grow, and of course stay. Joe Roman, President and CEO of the Greater Cleveland Partnership, will tell us more. Joe.
Good evening, everyone. As you may have noticed, I'm standing in one of my favorite spots in Cleveland, Progressive Field. We all know Cleveland is a sports town, and we all love to cheer on our teams from the stands, from a seat at the bar, my favorite place, or from our homes. Yes, they bring us great enjoyment and entertainment. However, each one of our sports teams plays an important economic development role in our region as well. Not only do venues like Progressive Field, the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, and the First Energy Stadium infuse a significant amount of revenue into our ecosystem through sports operations, many of them host outside events, like concerts that also bring revenue to our city. But what so many sometimes forget is that our sports teams also help generate secondary revenue throughout our town. When Clevelanders go to bars and restaurants to watch games, that's also important and delivers impactful revenue for the Northeast Ohio economy. So it is prudent to recognize the important work many in our community have done over the last few years to ensure we can continue to keep our sports teams here in Cleveland, and especially the Cleveland Indians, since their lease will be expiring soon, and investments in this place, a nearly 30-year-old venue, can be extremely efficient to keep the team here for another 20 years. But making Cleveland a great place to run a business is not just about our sports teams. It is much bigger than that. Cleveland is a town I've grown up in all my life, and I have dedicated my career to ensuring whenever possible that this region can be a place that businesses want to call home. And there's a lot that comes along with that. Businesses access the real estate opportunities, capital and operating costs, incentives, talent and workforce, accessibility, culture, and quality of life. As an organization, GCP is focused on projects that relate to each and every one of these areas, as we serve our role as both the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Cleveland and a premier economic development organization at the same time. I'm going to spend a few more minutes sharing some of those important initiatives that I think will matter to you and your businesses in the coming years. You heard earlier in Scott's comments about the use of our GCP InGear platform as we work to share information with businesses during COVID-19. Yet this platform is a lot more than that. A part of the GCP Forward Cleve strategic plan, GCP's InGear site was launched in February 2020 in direct response to the Greater Cleveland business community's request to create a dedicated business portal for industry growth, business expansion, attraction, and retention. InGear is a comprehensive, interactive economic development resource for all businesses of all sizes. Our team serves as your one-stop connection to Northeast Ohio's broader economic development ecosystem and all its providers. In the first half of 2020 alone, our team facilitated 700 plus business outreach and engagement visits and made 200 plus partner referrals. We work closely with Jobs Ohio and other partners here in the area on ensuring companies get the answers and support they need to grow. We also launched a companion platform for entrepreneurs called Business Growth Compass. Created by the Greater Cleveland Partnership's Equity and Inclusion and Cozy Small Business divisions, the website serves as a resource guide for small businesses, helping them to connect to the right resources, solutions, expertise, and tools they need to develop and grow their businesses effectively and successfully. Most of you may recall our tax study that was launched as part of that Forward Cleve strategic plan as well. We hired EY to analyze our tax environment and competitiveness compared to 10 similar Great Lakes markets where we compete. The study showed that if you live in Cleveland or Cuyahoga County, you face a higher tax burden than your peers in those other cities. And worst of all, our trends are not getting better. And taxes are considerably higher in our county than in the counties right around us. Business taxes are close to average, but unfortunately the personal tax issue hits every business where it counts the most on our ability to attract and retain talent. Since we completed that study, our GCP Government Affairs Council and GCP Board have been very purposeful as we consider support for new levies and tax increases in our region. We have requested additional data from those taxing agencies and metrics to understand how the additional revenues will be used to generate a greater impact for the community, our people, and our businesses. And we have also promoted the importance of discussions about collaboration and consolidation. That has not been easy work, and while some may disagree with our approach, they have offered no alternatives. But it is essential as we look to relieve the tax burden and we compete with those other cities around us. 3 other advocacy issues will also require significant attention next year, a budget year for the state of Ohio. Restoring the confidence in our public policy arena and its process while fostering support for renewable energies. Starting a very important statewide discussion to examine House Bill 920, a more than 40-year-old rule that inhibits natural tax growth for cities and school districts that has had questionable impacts in our community. We need to look at this issue with a fresher lens in today's tax environment. And developing a strong and balanced strategy in 2021 to create a rational, local income tax system that acknowledges strong support for core cities, while also reacts to the fact that thousands of wage earners will now be paying their local income taxes differently this year and likely long into the future. And so while I approach the end of my career, at least at GCP, I wanted to bring back a prop I used a few years ago when we were advocating for the sin tax, which in fact helps to support these sports facilities that I mentioned earlier. I wanted to thank all of you who've supported GCP over these last 20 years and over my whole career of over 35 years. And that support for GCP has obviously been support for me. I've enjoyed this career, and I could think of no better way to celebrate than to bring that prop back and enjoy it one more time, and really hope that you all stay engaged in the organization and help us with either those entities or organizations that tend to pop up every now and then, or the ones we create to move our region forward. Thank you.
Spoiler alert. This is, as many of you know, Joe Roman's last annual meeting. Now, he's not retiring till the spring, so we'll have a retirement party for him. But I did want to take this chance to say, on behalf of the GCP board and the many, many people that Joe has worked with alongside and helped over the last 3+ decades, we've enjoyed it. It's been great working with you. You've done so much for us in our community. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you so much, Joe. I echo Scott's sentiments, and I can say with great confidence that you've had a significant impact on this region throughout your career. And of course, we thank you so much for your amazing contributions and your commitment to making a difference right here in Northeast Ohio. The Cleveland Innovation Project is also a hallmark of the Greater Cleveland Partnership's Forward Cle strategic plan and a piece of work that was developed to help our region compete on a larger scale. The Cleveland Innovation Project, an alliance of the Cleveland Foundation, Fund for Our Economic Future, Greater Cleveland Partnership, Jumpstart, and Team NEO, and supported by a steering committee comprised of corporate and civic leaders, was initiated with a balanced mission of strengthening technology-based economic growth and prosperity for all Greater Cleveland residents. Since June 2019, the Alliance Steering Committee and more than 150 local business, entrepreneurial, institutional, and nonprofit leaders have worked diligently to develop strategies and plans towards the vision of Cleveland becoming a leading Midwest region for technology-led growth and inclusion by the year 2030. 4 core initiatives have been selected to achieve this vision. 1, scale strategic sectors by leveraging Cleveland's strengths to become a leader center for smart manufacturing, next-generation healthcare, and water technologies. 2, boost digital talent by aligning and expanding education and training programs, post-secondary through postgraduate, to prepare many and diverse individuals for digital career pathways. 3, catalyze a capital continuum by fostering and providing access to a robust and varied range of capital sources to start and scale businesses. 4, expedite digital equity by ensuring every Greater Cleveland resident has access to in-home, high-quality broadband for online learning, working, and living by 2022. Now, you've likely seen announcements tied to these initiatives in the news over the last several weeks and months. Federal support for an innovative new water industry, exciting plans for a Midtown Innovation District, and many others. It is, of course, an exciting time for our region as we explore what could be. So we will spend the balance of the rest of this meeting helping bring more of the comprehensive Cleveland Innovation Project to you. There are certainly organizations in our region that are excelling at innovation and thus can act as models as we develop and implement this regional strategy. One of those institutions is NASA, and we are so pleased to have both the NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine and NASA Glenn Director Marla Perez-Davis with us today to talk about the pioneering work NASA is doing both nationally and here in Northeast Ohio. Join me in welcoming Administrator Bridenstine and Director Perez-Davis.
America's mission to land the first woman and the next man on the moon by 2024 would not be possible without NASA's Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. For nearly 80 years, Glenn has been a world leader in advanced performance and safety of commercial aircraft and deep space exploration capabilities. Our agency's first ever nationwide economic impact report recently found that NASA's work at Glenn ranked Ohio in the top 10 states benefiting from our agency's projects. NASA supports more than 11,000 jobs in Ohio, adding $2.3 billion to the state's economy in fiscal year 2019. Today, Glenn is a key contributor to our nation's Moon to Mars efforts, developing in-space propulsion and surface power systems, testing flight hardware, and studying the effects of living in reduced gravity. With NASA Glenn and our commercial partners in Ohio charging forward, I am confident we will continue to lead humanity further into space than ever before, inspiring the next generation of explorers. Now it is my pleasure to introduce one of NASA's greats, Dr. Marla Perez-Davis. Marla serves as the director of NASA's John H. Glenn Research Center in Cleveland. She is an outstanding leader, and it is my pleasure to work with her. Marla, over to you.
I first would like to thank you, Jim, for that warm introduction and his kind words about all the great work going on at NASA Glenn and here in Ohio. I would also like to thank Joe, Mari, and the entire team at GCP for their continued interest and support of NASA Glenn and our many partners. As Jim noted, NASA Glenn has been a pillar of the Cleveland landscape and in Ohio aerospace community for nearly 80 years. And with more than 3,300 civil servants and contractors working at our facilities, our continued research and technology development efforts will ensure we, as a nation, keep exploring, discovering, and innovating to shape the world of tomorrow, both on Earth and in space. The agency recently released an economic impact study for fiscal year 2019, which found that Ohio ranks in the top 10 benefactors of all NASA's effort. While those results look at the impact of NASA as a whole on Ohio's economy, we at Glenn work each year with Cleveland State University to conduct our own economic impact study. I am proud to say in fiscal year 2019, Glenn's economic impact in Northeast Ohio exceeded $1.6 billion. Our activities created and supported nearly 7,000 jobs, increasing labor income by $505 million and generated nearly $118 million in local, state, and federal taxes. Looking toward the future, our center's Power and Propulsion legacy has positioned us to lead the advancement of innovative systems for NASA's Artemis program and eventual human exploration of Mars. For those of you who may not know, NASA has embarked on an ambitious new plan to land the first woman and the next man on the moon in 2024. We call this plan Artemis. And we are well on our way to achieving our goals, but this landing won't happen without NASA's Glenn or Ohio. Our state is the birthplace of aviation, and we have contributed more to aerospace than just about any other state, whether that means the critical research and technologies required for human flight, or by raising astronauts like John Glenn, Neil Armstrong, and the others who will lead us into the next frontier. These missions are critical to the national space economy, fueling new industries and technologies, supporting job growth, and furthering the demand for highly skilled STEM workforce. At Glenn, we like to say the path to space leads through Ohio, and I think you will find that to be true with Artemis on the moon and when we eventually send astronauts to Mars in the next decade. As we look toward traveling to this destination, all of these NASA contributions are great, and we love to talk about them. But none of these will be possible without the support of the American people, the American industry. Across America, thousands of suppliers and small businesses are hard at work on innovations to help us establish a sustainable human presence on the moon. In fact, Ohio is home to 124 Artemis suppliers who are contributing to the development of the Orion spacecraft, the Space Launch System rocket, our new 21st century spaceport at Kennedy Space Center in Florida, and more. And like we have throughout our history, NASA strives to share the benefit of aeronautic and space technology to help address issues and solve problems here on Earth. But we cannot bring these technologies to market. We need partnerships, especially those in our local area, so our technology is available to companies to generate real-world benefit. Two of the best examples of this effort at Glenn have had a direct impact on the environment and our safety here in Northeast Ohio. The first came a few years ago when our researchers teamed with NOAA Great Lake Environmental Research Laboratory, the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory, Kent State University, the University of Toledo, and Michigan Tech Research Institute to use a hyperspectral imaging technology. Developed at Glenn previously for Mars exploration, the technology was mounted on our research aircraft and was used to image harmful algal blooms that have contaminated water in western Lake Erie. These flights and other ongoing collaborations with agencies across the Great Lakes have significantly increased our understanding of Lake Erie and better inform our responses to the environmental and human health threat. Perhaps the most timely example is COVID-19, which has changed the way we all live and do business. Since the onset of the pandemic, NASA Glenn has been actively working with university hospitals to develop new methods for the contamination of personal protective equipment, like N95 masks, to safeguard health workers caring for patients with coronavirus. We're also working with Kent-based EP&R to further develop their portable, cost-effective decontamination machine called Ambustat, which sprays a sterilizing mist to disinfect small spaces such as ambulances. The original Ambustat was developed in 2015 through one of the Glenn Regional Economic Development partnerships. And we are now helping EPNR mature the next generation device called Ambustat G2 to combat coronavirus. One of the best ways to work with NASA is through our technology transfer program, which aims to spin off technologies to the commercial market. Our technology transfer team at NASA Glenn is continuously assessing technology's potential and move promising innovations toward commercialization. To date, we have produced nearly 200 technologies that have gone on to achieve commercial success and solve real-world problems. You can also leverage Space Act Agreement or our Small Business Innovation Research, SBIR, and Small Business Technology Transfer, STTR, programs. These agreements help supplement research and development efforts while helping us advance our missions and program objectives. Through these agreements, we allow access to our world-class testing facilities and manufacturing capabilities and engagement of our experts. We also have tipping point partnerships, where we seek opportunities to foster and invest in the development of mature commercial space capabilities that could benefit future NASA missions. These partnerships give that final investment push to make them viable while providing access to agency resources and saving the American taxpayers' money. Finally, one of the best and perhaps most unknown ways to partner with NASA is through our various technology challenges. These challenges are typically open calls for commercial solutions or ideas to solve important space-related problems, which could radically improve existing capabilities or deliver new space capabilities altogether. We recently launched our What's on the Moon Challenge, which is looking for solutions to address technology gaps in the area's high-capacity, adaptable, and reliable lunar power systems to support sustainable human exploration. I'd like to show a brief video outlining this exciting opportunity, as I'm hopeful this challenge, or others like it in the future, will attract submissions from companies here in Northeast Ohio.
On Earth, we can light the darkness, power our lives, supply energy for the world's needs. On the Moon, we cannot, or at least not yet. With 350 hours of total darkness and day after day of sub-zero temperatures, traditional Earth-based power storage and distribution technologies aren't going to be enough. Future lunar explorers will need power to use the tools and technologies necessary for uninterrupted exploration and survival on a new world. That's why NASA is searching for solutions beyond our ongoing research. From garage inventors to small businesses, industry, and university students, NASA's What's on the Moon Centennial Challenge is crowdsourcing ideas to solve the difficult tasks of power distribution, storage, and management on the lunar surface, and enhance these technologies here on Earth. As NASA builds a sustainable human presence on the Moon, continuous energy will be a critical piece of this puzzle, so that one day, we can light the darkness on the Moon.
Throughout history, NASA has had a mandate to share space technology for the benefit of the United States. And this is why we're here today, to excite you about what NASA is doing, but even more so, I want to make you aware of the resources and possibilities of working with us. Because without public interest, active commercial participation, and private investments, we will not accomplish our exploration goals or continue to use our technological might for the American people. NASA Glenn, the local community, and local businesses in Northeast Ohio must continue to proactively engage and work together as much as possible if we are to be successful. I hope all of you will make an effort to join us on this journey to the Moon, Mars, and beyond. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
We oftentimes forget that organizations like NASA Glenn are right here in our backyard. Just like all of you, they too are helping build and support the economy in our region. And it is absolutely amazing to hear from Administrator Bridenstine and Director Perez Davis about how innovation is driving the future. We, as a region, need to think similarly about our potential. There is much we can achieve together. Now, as I noted earlier, the key here is to innovate by building new sectors and capitalizing on our region's strengths and most significant assets. And one of the most important assets here in Northeast Ohio is, of course, the people. The competition for highly skilled talent is real, especially as we consider the jobs of the future. Fortunately, this is an area that the Greater Cleveland Partnership has been working in for quite some time as they create strategies focused on advancing education and building a strong workforce. Joe Roman tells us more.
Thanks, Laura. GCP has long supported both the Cleveland School District and our employers as both manage the task of placing Greater Clevelanders into roles that best leverage their skills and interests. As you would imagine, our work here continues to grow and evolve as the need in different sectors increases or changes. Our job has oftentimes been at the intersection of education and workforce creating strategies and initiatives to connect the two. Today, GCP's Talent Division leverages the voice of the business community to design and support a workforce ecosystem that strengthens and deepens the talent pipeline in Northeastern Ohio. We are committed to working with partners in the public and private sectors to ensure that Northeast Ohio creates, attracts, and retains a 21st century competitive workforce that contributes to the growth of our region's businesses and the vitality of the regional economy. There are some foundational elements of our work. The Greater Cleveland Partnership's K-12 education work supports the continued implementation of the Cleveland Plan, the city's blueprint to ensure that every child in Cleveland attends a quality school and every neighborhood has a multitude of great schools from which families can choose. GCP, representing the business community as a Cleveland Plan stakeholder, continues to contribute to the development of college and career readiness for Cleveland students. Issue 68 on the ballot this November is critical, and like some other unfortunate issues in our state, it's being clouded and impacted by a dark money group that is against students, but won't own up to it. Please help us pass Issue 68 by contributing to the campaign and by helping to educate your Cleveland resident employees who will vote this November. But as I noted earlier, our work in this division has become even more important. Our Forward Cle plan included specific initiatives as a part of the talent imperative. These included building the Office of Workforce Engagement to broker the involvement of the business community in developing and leveraging workforce services available to member companies. The deliverable is the creation of the GCP Talent Hub, a virtual, constantly evolving clearinghouse of workforce development providers, curriculum development resources, best practices, and opportunities to connect with and build a present and future workforce pipeline. We are also focused on driving an aggressive focus on skills-based workforce initiatives and the required jobs of tomorrow through sector partnerships, along with a heavy emphasis on internship and apprenticeship initiatives covering the schools to adult training continuum. GCP is a founding member of the Cuyahoga County Workforce Funders Group, a public-private partnership consisting of many of the organizations that fund and sustain the county's workforce development ecosystem. These partners have pooled over $2.5 million to fund 3 industry sector partnerships in the most critical sectors in Cleveland: manufacturing, healthcare, and IT over the next 3 years. This initiative, called Workforce Connect, is an employer-led endeavor where companies strategize together on how to best create and maintain talent for their unique needs. We are partnering with Magnet as the co-intermediaries for Workforce Connect manufacturing, and with Wright, GCP's tech talent arm, as the most recently selected intermediary for Workforce Connect IT. We are also prioritizing diversity and inclusion efforts to connect opportunities to minority and female populations where gaps exist. The conclusion is collaboration with the Inclusive Development Network, IDN. Through the National IDN, GCP leads a Cleveland Inclusive Development Leadership Team, which is one of 5 geographic cohorts from across the country working to identify and implement strategies that reduce equity gaps in local workforce development. And lastly, we are focused on articulating and advancing a policy agenda in support of the talent needs for employers. That's what we do best. GCP continues to advocate at the state and federal level for workforce development policy and funding that assists our members in finding the talent they need. As Laura mentioned earlier, we have 4 specific strategies as part of our Cleveland Innovation Project, and talent will continue to be a key facet. When we talk about scaling strategic sectors, we are first focusing on technology acceleration for production and supply chain and industry. We will focus on 3 areas that leverage our strengths: healthcare technology development in areas such as technology models for remote and community health, development and manufacturing of cell technologies, and water technology focusing on next generation solutions. Developing these sectors will require a commitment to talent. We are going to need to develop programs to train, reskill, and upskill workers, particularly workers in industries displaced by the pandemic. We will also need to expand degree programs and internships related to these same sectors. We have a good foundation to build off of here with Right, our industry-driven IT workforce alliance. At the same time, we are also focused on seed and venture funds to help catalyze our work in these sectors. We are fortunate to have leaders like Paul Dolan, who you will hear from shortly, step up to lead this work. Suffice it to say, we will need additional capital sources to start and scale businesses and keep them here. As I noted, we are fortunate to have leaders from the business, civic, and not-for-profit sectors collaborating on all of this work. I would like to introduce a few of those leaders to talk more about the work they are leading to accelerate the Cleveland Innovation Project and our initiative to strengthen technology-based economic growth in Greater Cleveland.
Thanks, Joe. It's been an honor to serve the Cleveland Innovation Project. Our goal is to foster and provide a robust and varied range of capital sources to start and scale businesses. Entrepreneurs of all types need startup and scale-up capital to grow their enterprises. We risk losing these individuals and the businesses and jobs that they grow if the region does not have enough seed and venture capital providers. Sally Grease and I interviewed a number of private investors, companies, institutions, family offices, wealth management firms, who shared their investment considerations for venture funds and startup businesses. Those findings are helping us refine strategies to develop a robust capital continuum that supports entrepreneurs in Cleveland.
I am so pleased to be part of this project for Cleveland. Paul and I have been talking with institutional investors, including CIOs of leading health and research institutions, family offices, wealth managers, and corporate leaders to learn their perspectives on how to catalyze, attract, and scale venture capital to our region. These leaders recognize the importance of retaining and attracting capital in Cleveland, and many are interested in helping shape capital strategies to help fund and develop businesses in our region. The investors emphasize the importance of pursuing competitive market returns in our efforts. They also recognize that it takes more than money to build a robust venture capital ecosystem. A comprehensive strategy is needed that generates a pipeline of experienced and diverse talent, leverages unique assets, and creates connections to business partners and customers for the region to be successful. We're fortunate to have strong local assets in our research and health institutions from which great technologies and talent emerge. We'll build on these strengths as we develop the capital strategies.
The Cleveland Innovation Project seeks to revitalize all aspects of our city, particularly economically, to promote inclusive prosperity. Cuyahoga Community College is committed to contributing to this goal in the context of the 4 pillars of CIP, especially the one focusing on talent development. To this end, at the college, we continue to take steps to align and expand education and training to prepare individuals from across the community for careers and digital jobs. So Tri-C is working closely with GCP and others through Workforce Connect, for example, to drive an employer-based strategy whose aim is to build a deep pool of skilled labor and create additional opportunities for residents to pursue degrees in healthcare and other areas. COVID-19 has left many in our community without work. The time is now to transition many of those workers to jobs in the digital economy. Tri-C looks forward to partnering with GCP and others to make this happen.
This project is about investing in Cleveland, and there is no time like the present for CSU to do its part and help take the lead in creating a blueprint for nurturing and producing talent that will help drive future growth. A vision and blueprint for success begins with the transformational power of a public urban research institution that drives inclusive growth and innovation and builds partnerships and pathways that remove barriers to social and economic mobility. We're looking at doing this 4 ways at CSU. First, by investing in specific educational pipelines that increase the number of 4-year degrees awarded, with specialty training geared to specific skills in areas where demand will be high in our new post-COVID economy. Over 80% of our graduates choose to stay, work, and live in Northeast Ohio after graduation, and we are ready to increase the number of higher education degrees, certificates, adult learning opportunities, and virtual education programming that support current and future industry growth. Second, we will collectively invest in re-educating and graduating the over 1.5 million Ohioans, over 300,000 who live in Northeast Ohio, who have some college education and no degree. Upgrading workforce skills and creating talented graduates at scale transforms regional economies, it draws companies in, and it prevents industry and company flight when talent pools are thin. Third, we will double down on partnerships that leverage our strengths and are specifically focused on broad-based talent recruitment, growth, and development. Partnerships like the one created through the Parker Hannafin Living Learning Community at CSU, where we now provide free room and board to 60 CMSD students a year in a structured, cohorted program geared toward graduation and leadership development. 30 students from year 1 are already back for sophomore year, an extraordinary achievement that demonstrates that our unique approach to engaged learning works. Fourth, we will make improving and sustaining the health of our community our number 1 priority. With 3 major successful health systems and 2 large research universities, we have all the ingredients to address our urban public health challenges and create necessary educational pathways and better jobs that lead to better health outcomes and ultimately improve lives for all Clevelanders. This is a unique opportunity for us to define our own future here in Cleveland. The time is now. We are ready, willing, and able to help lead. So let's get started.
Thank you to Paul, Sally, Harlan, and Dr. Johnson, along with many others, for your efforts to accelerate growth in our region. There is certainly a lot of work to be done, and we will continue to need professionals from across the region to step up and to step forward, to provide their skills, expertise, and passions to help all of us continue to make positive progress. And that is not something that is foreign here in Greater Cleveland. We have many who are in leadership today who have had long-term careers working from the bottom up here in Northeast Ohio. These are people with a strong commitment to seeing the region grow and thrive. And they are willing to do anything and everything in their power to make an impact. The progress we have made as a region would absolutely not be possible with these passionate staff leaders in the nonprofit community. Annually, the Greater Cleveland Partnership presents an award that recognizes these individuals for their contributions to our community. For more than 11 years, GCP has presented this award to the most impactful leaders in honor of Richard Shatton, a former colleague and friend of so many. Richard led Cleveland Tomorrow for nearly a decade and made countless contributions to the culture of civic leadership, much more of the how and why than the what of our business. Today, we have another winner to announce. I send it back over to Joe Roman to introduce the 2020 Shatton Award winner.
Again, thanks, Laura. This is one of my favorite times of our annual meetings. Several years ago, 15 to be exact, we created a new award at GCP called the Richard Shatton Professional Leadership Award, after an individual who really inspired so many of us in this industry sector we call the not-for-profit world. Richard was special, and we wanted to make sure that every year we honored somebody who reminded us of the skills and the talents that Richard embodied. This is our 15th award, and I couldn't be happier than to announce the winner this year being Joe Marinucci, the president of Downtown Cleveland Alliance. Joe has worked tirelessly to build an entire organization and sustain it over some very difficult years, focused on growing downtown. He had a career before that in state government and other sectors, but he has really shined in his leadership for the Downtown Cleveland Alliance. He leads all of the downtown property owners to get behind initiatives that help grow this downtown for those employers that we mentioned earlier who benefit from all of the assets like our sports teams and Playhouse Square and restaurants and everything in between. That's not easy. Joe plays a behind-the-scene role and has played a behind-the-scene role, but his impact is not behind the scenes. We see it every day. And I know Joe was also a friend of Richard's. So I'm even more pleased to know that today we can award Joe with this award as a former friend and colleague of Richard, and I know Richard couldn't be more pleased. So Joe, congratulations on behalf of GCP. I really think you've earned this through your career, and I couldn't be happier for you. Congratulations.
Joe, I wanted to thank you so much, along with Scott Chaikin and the board of Greater Cleveland Partnership, to Jeannie and her family, and to the Shatton Committee. I greatly, greatly appreciate the honor you were bestowing upon me today. I, like many of us in the room, have had an opportunity to work with Richard over the years. I first met Richard when I worked for Dick Celeste when he was governor of the state of Ohio in the mid-'80s, and worked on a couple of really interesting projects with Richard at the time. For example, Chagrin Highlands, which at that point was known as Figge International, which obviously became the infrastructure blueprint for what later became Chagrin Highlands. When I came back to Cleveland in the first part of 1990, I again had an opportunity to work with Richard and the entire team at Cleveland Tomorrow. We worked on some really, really interesting projects, obviously from the Gateway Complex to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, to the Science Museum, and a whole bunch of things that really kind of set the framework for the Cleveland that we know today. And for those of us that had an opportunity to work directly with Richard, we know that one of the hallmarks of his approach was collaboration. And in addition to that collaboration, he always kind of recommended that the best way to get things done was really not to worry about who got credit for the work, but the most important thing was the outcome. In other words, getting the projects done, getting the initiatives done, getting things like the Cleveland Tomorrow, Cleveland 2020 plan in place, which in many ways became, again, the hallmark for many of the things that we've been able to accomplish over the years. I took Richard's philosophy to heart, and over the last 15 years in my work at the Alliance, I've really adopted those philosophies of collaboration, and again, not worrying about who took credit for what, but just working very, very hard in a, again, collaborative way to make sure that we got things done. So again, the leadership that I've experienced working with Richard has stayed with me throughout the years. His legacy, I think, has made a significant impact on this community and continues to make a significant impact on this community. And for that, I think all of us are enriched who had an opportunity to work with him or really model our work after him after all these years. So on behalf of the Alliance, I want to thank all of you for this recognition. And we look forward to working with many of you in the years to come to ensure that we continue to work on the momentum in downtown Cleveland. Thank you.
So my last role tonight is to thank our almost outgoing chair, Scott Chaikin. Scott by the time he finishes his term this December, will actually have served in the chair role longer than any other of his predecessors. That's just a timing calendar COVID thing. But nevertheless, the leadership he's provided during that 2.5 years has been tremendous. He's helped the organization rebrand itself to tell its story even more impactfully and hopefully even better to all of you, so you can figure out how to navigate the services that we can provide to you. Scott has been a wonderful leader. I know his colleagues have enjoyed that leadership, and I also know that Scott won't go away. I can already see the roles that we'll be asking Scott to play. So thank you, Mr. Chaikin. It's been a great almost 2.5 years. And then in following up on that, I want to introduce GCP's incoming chair in January, Eric Schnurr, the current CEO of the Lubrizol Corporation in Lake County, part of our great metro area. When we were looking for Scott's replacement and successor, Eric jumped out at us, not only because of the size, scale, and reach of the Lubrizol company, but also because he had already started to get involved in many of GCP's initiatives, like the Cleveland Innovation Project. Lubrizol itself has been a tremendous supporter of all GCP's initiatives over the last 20 years. And Eric, I know, is ready and anxious to take on this role. And I look forward to helping him in the first quarter of next year get started. So let me introduce Eric Schnurr, again, CEO of the Lubrizol Corporation, GCP's next chair, to take us home from here. Eric?
Thank you, Joe. Good evening, everyone. I'm Eric Schnurr, Chairman and CEO of the Lubrizol Corporation, and I'm privileged to be stepping into the role of Chairman of the Greater Cleveland Partnership. I'm also very fortunate to follow in the footsteps of many successful and impactful leaders like Scott, Beth Mooney, Rick Chericosta, Fred Nance, Chris Connor, Sandy Cutler, and many more. I thank them for their leadership, and I certainly look forward to their continued counsel. The Greater Cleveland Partnership has long been a pillar for economic development in this community. GCP remains focused on the core issues and opportunities that contribute to the overall economic vitality of our region. Workforce and talent, equity and inclusion, business growth and development, small business and entrepreneurship, neighborhood development, infrastructure, and more. With a strong board, great leadership, and a talented staff, GCP's work is never done. It adjusts and evolves as the needs of the business community and the needs of the broader community change. Now today, we certainly have significant issues to address, but we also have great opportunities to pursue. I want to spend a moment and talk about what's next and what we can accomplish working together with common purpose to make Northeast Ohio a better region for all. We will continue to focus on our Forward CLE initiatives, as you heard earlier, promoting equity to grow the economy, supporting business growth, advocating for our region, developing neighborhoods, and very importantly, enhancing innovation. GCP and our economic development partners believe that innovation is critical as we work to grow our region. The Cleveland Innovation Project is leveraging Cleveland's heritage and strength as one of the largest and most diverse manufacturing hubs in the country, as well as having medical resources and organizations that are second to none on the planet. Cleveland is in the early stages of the fourth industrial revolution, where data, analytics, and automation will significantly reshape many industries, including medicine and manufacturing. This is a great opportunity for Cleveland. We can become a leader in digital technologies across many, many applications by enabling technology adoption with pilot programs, attracting technology companies and supporting their growth, and increasing collaboration with our great colleges and universities to provide strong talent for our businesses and greater career opportunities for our people right here in Cleveland. And we know that we will only be successful if there is truly equal opportunity for everyone, regardless of their background, their race, their gender, or their sexual orientation. Our differences make us stronger, and we should not only welcome those differences, but celebrate them as one of our greatest collective strengths. The collaboration among the funding partners and the progress we have seen in the Cleveland Innovation Project is a foundation for so much more. Despite the many challenges of today, I encourage all of you to take a moment and think about all we have in Cleveland. We're fortunate to have so many talented and dedicated people who are committed to making a positive difference in our community. And we have great resources across the region: corporate resources, medical resources, educational resources, great sports teams, arts, culture, and of course, natural resources in the form of a great lake and a great park system. And we have a proud, unique, and storied history, one we should celebrate, learn from, and build upon. Put together, Cleveland is in a very unique position and has incredible potential. I look forward to working with all of you as GCP Chair, and together we will continue to transform our Cleveland into everything we know it can be.